history of human civilization has left many valuable cultural heritage. Cultural heritage. Cultural heritage is an expression of the way of living developed by a community as passed on from generation to generation. As we know, heritage nowadays is always being known as a history, but it's not the same. Heritage is included, but is much more than preserving, excavating, displaying, or restoring collection of all things. It also affected by environmental and many factors. We know and clear that the presence of heritage is not conquered by our society. We can take example from protecting our country. It's about protect our country and retain our people. From that, we should maintain it by applying it in our daily life for new generation that can take it as an example. It also same goes to heritage. There are many sort of that we can contribute to make our heritage become more values. Lastly, it is our job to keep its safety and organized well, because heritage is not only about to know and understand, but it's also something that should be shared with our children and grandchildren. Thank you.
First, let's start by looking at the definitions of the word. The term heritage refers to a property that is inherited and carried down through generations. What is cultural heritage? A community's cultural heritage comprises conventions, practices, places, artifacts, artistic expression, and values inherited from one generation to the next. The terms intangible and tangible cultural heritage are used to define different types of cultural heritage. For tangible cultural heritage, the physical artifacts produced, preserved, and transferred intergenerationally in society. It encompasses artistic achievements, constructed heritage such as buildings and monuments, and other physical or tangible manifestations of human ingenuity that have cultural significance. Tangible heritage is separated into two types, which are movable and immovable heritage. The tangible movable heritage, it consists of archaeological, historical, anthropological, religious, and aesthetic things such as artworks, manuscripts, and documents, records, photographs, and audio-visual resources. The intangible movable heritage consists of groups of buildings, monuments, and sites. While for intangible cultural heritage, practices, representations, expression, knowledge, skills, as well as instruments, objects, artifacts, and cultural spaces associated with them that communities, groups, and in some cases individuals recognize as part of their cultural heritage are referred to as intangible cultural heritage. Next, I will explain about natural heritage. Natural heritage can be defined as definable locations or regions of land and sea that can be identified and defined as heritage values using assessment criteria similar to those used to evaluate locations that should be added to national heritage list. Natural heritage is most commonly associated with landscapes and biological systems, including plants, animals, natural landscapes, landforms, oceans, and water bodies. Next, the importance of heritage. It allows us to understand and explain why we are who we are. Next, create opportunities for local people to review, re-engage, and reinterpret their history. And lastly, it both directly and indirectly informs, influences, and inspires public debate and policy.
Hello, Assalamualaikum. I'm Rasha Zibituma Prisi. Today, I would like to present how to protect our heritage. The world native culture is valuable and cannot be duplicated, so that the heritage that exists in the country should be maintained as a symbol of patriotism and understanding of the history of the country. Thus, there are several bodies that play an important role in preserving and protecting the country. So, I will start from government as one of the bodies that play important role to protecting our nation heritage. These organizations have to get a recognition from UNESCO. For example, Bandar Raya Melaka has received recognition from UNESCO as one of the UNESCO World Heritage Sites in 2008. This indirectly able to encourage the entry of tourists in the country. Thus, similar effort can be made to upgrade other historic buildings and heritage cultural in the country. Secondly, provide a special government provisions. The government needs to allocate a special budget to preserve history building and cultural heritage in the country. It is time for Malaysia to take steps like other developed countries to allocate funds in the national budget to preserve historic building. With sufficient funds, historic building and cultural heritage can be upgraded to attract tourists to visit the country. The second role is from educational institution. As an educational institution, a school and a university should encourage students to be involved in effort to preserve country's heritage. For example, participate in volunteer activities to clean and upgrade the landscape of historic buildings. Apart from being able to preserve the country heritage, it also can cultivate interest in students. The second one is the field trip. The school and university need to hold a program of visit to historical locations of Malaysia. If many visitors come to the history site, the entrance fee charge will be used to preserve the historic building and places. Indirectly, it helps preserve our nation's history building. The third role is for mass media. Mass media can make a promotion of state heritage. It is because with the power of media, they can make a large-scale promotion to invite people to visit historical locations in the country. The more people know about the existence of historical places, the more likely the location in turn provides an adequate source of income to the management. Next is documentary. Production companies are encouraged to make special documentaries revolving around any historical places that exist in our country. In the documentary, can broadcast the history of the place and the history behind its existence. It can knowledge and information to public, which is something that related to historical places in Malaysia. The fourth role is parents. As a parents, they have to give encouragement to children. It is because parents need to take their children on holiday to historical places to attract interest and cultivate a love of national history. Indirectly, it can increase the number of visitors and revenue of companies that manage historic buildings and places, as well as can increase the tourism industry. Last but not least is from Ministry of Tourism. The Tourism Ministry need to make the history place as one of the location that tourists need to go. Travel agents need to include historic place as one of the travel package. Indirectly, it can attract foreign tourists about the history of our country and further increase the country income in the field of tourism. Thank you.
Next, enabling technologies may be used to build a platform of services that supports integrated knowledge processing, dynastic monitoring, and long-term of cultural heritage usage. They assist in providing all of the fundamental functionality required to make a cultural environment smart by establishing the necessary connections across various settings. The Cultural Heritage Information System (CHIS) aims to look into the potential of creating a technology infrastructure that may support operations connected to cultural heritage and the different users involved. The ability to utilize models for the representation and storage of standardized contextualized data in accordance with the semantic web approach will enable a domain knowledge representation as well as semantic integration with other domains. The recovery and digitalization of data from real-world situations is a time and resource-intensive undertaking that necessitates the employment of expensive and specialist equipment. CHIS addressed this barrier by increasing the development of low-cost data collecting solutions based on the partners' experiences and expertise. The creation of best practices for the successful use of these low-cost tools can have a major impact not only on the project but on cultural heritage in general. The CHIS ecosystem will be a source of data on tourist flow, profiles that can be used to support strategic and operational choices using big data analytics. Cloud infrastructure allows the system to scale up and down as needed, allowing it to dynamically optimize its performance and resources. This is an important consideration because performance is critical to the system overall usability. The cloud infrastructure, combined with the platform as a service paradigm, promotes CHIS pro-component interoperability and facilitates the addition of new elements in the future. What about crowdsourcing? If consumers associate metadata with cultural heritage, metadata is more likely to be of interest to them. Clearly, the efficiency of crowdsourcing is determined by the user's ability to contribute content in a natural and spontaneous manner. Usability of the systems and the collection of feedback, if possible, are two crucial factors in achieving this goal. In order to maximize the amount of content the user provides to the network, optimized interaction with current social networks is also required. Another intended use of this crowdsourcing is to identify the structural condition of historic structures and cultural heritage sites in general, utilizing information supplied by people to track their status.
In this slide, I will present about the cultural heritage information system architecture. GIS architecture is cultural form that often termed or considered as a cultural symbol. It's perceived as a logo or mirror image of any civilization. Architecture is not only knowledge of science, art, materials, technology, but also humanity. Through the style of architecture, we can easily realize the lifestyle, culture, and traditions of that specific era. This provides how to understand about the physical artifact produced and maintained for the approaching generation as the heritage. These tangible heritage are a neighborhood of society and a symbol of human creativity since decades when it had been not the age of technology. This is the rationale why there's tons of importance given to the tangible heritage because it's considered as the logo of our forefathers. There is also so much importance is being given to the conservation of architectural heritage. Architectural conservation may be processed through which the fabric, historical design, integrity of humanity-built heritage is protected. In response to the sentimental attachment to those buildings, different movements started to grow. The growth of this movement happened at the time of serious archaeological discoveries. In response to those movements, two schools of thought came into being. One was to conserve the heritage and therefore the other was to revive by using present-day materials and techniques. There are many organizations that are working to lift awareness regarding architectural heritage. For example, of the organization that working to lift the awareness is the United States Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, the Archaeological Concilium, EAC, the International Council on Archive, ICA, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, and many more. I think that's all for me for this presentation. Thank you very much.
Assalamualaikum. I am Nur Fatih Shazwani bint Usman will continue this presentation about management of cultural heritage information system. Management of cultural heritage information system is divided by two, which is resource requirements of cultural heritage system and major designs, constraints and method. In resource requirements of cultural heritage system is routine maintenance. The preservation life cycle of digital object is an ongoing process that typically involves the management of digital content and its associated represent information. This routine maintenance is a crucial task in long-term digital preservation for both small and large-scale preservation projects. However, smaller organizations involved in curation and preservation of information often do not have sustainable funding models, making it difficult to effectively manage the preservation life cycle as most data and services require regular maintenance. Second is technical expertise. Like the other system, the hardware and software stack used to host cultural heritage system require constant and active monitoring. Such as activities require specific technical expertise, and this effectively raises the management and maintenance costs. And the last one is technological resources. The vast majority of modern cultural heritage systems are internet-based and require storage and computational resources, whether local or remotely hosted. In addition, multimedia applications such as image or video archive make intensive use of internet bandwidth. This requirement may not pose much of a challenge to well-established cultural heritage organizations, but smaller organizations with fewer resources need to plan for this. Also, when cultural heritage systems are deployed in regions where internet bandwidth is unreliable and mostly very expensive, it is difficult to guarantee widespread accessibility to services offered. Next is major design constraints and patents are about scalability. The scalability of system can be achieved in two ways, which is vertical scalability and horizontal scalability. Vertical scalability involves adding resources within an existing logical unit so to increase capacity. For instance, expanding storage would involve additional hard drive. For horizontal scalability, on the other hand, involves combining multiple logical units of resources to make them function as a single unit. In the context of cultural heritage system, the architectural design must be scalable enough to handle different content types that could potentially be placed in the system of number users who will be accessing the system at a given time, and also the different ways through which the content will be accessed. Preservation, one of the core functions of cultural heritage system, is centered around digital preservation, ensuring that the stored content will be accessible over a long period of time. A particularly challenging design consideration for cultural heritage system is ensuring that the architecture is appropriately designed to support potential migration and emulation techniques that might be employed to recover and subsequently access the digital content in the future. However, this eventual access of digital content is hampered by digital outdated, a situation in which software and hardware used to store digital content become obsolete due to the rapidly changing hardware and software environment. Last but not least is federated architecture. In a connected society, information sharing is being important to ensuring the success of this connectedness. Federated information system architecture coupled with interoperability protocol like the Open Archive Initiative Protocol for metadata harvesting have been particularly instrumental in facilitating the sharing of information among cultural heritage systems. Federated architecture functions through the seamless integration of distributed independent services that communicate with one another using standardized protocols.
In conclusion, cultural heritage is a prestige commodity and plays a very important role in our life. It keeps us attached to our religion, tradition, and belief. We have exposed many ideas about cultural heritage, from a various type of heritage to how the heritage is being protected. As far as heritage concerns, the best way to preserve our cultural heritage, whatever it may be, is to share it with others, make our generation become more knowledgeable. It provided more of our society know how much important to keep it the world heritage than before. We generally consider heritage to be the positive and meaningful element of our family identity that we incorporate into our own life and pass along to succeeding generations. Custodians must take responsibility in disseminating good information to the society as a good model. Lastly, heritage is provided clue to our past and how our society has evolved. Help us to understand and explain why we are the way we are now.